Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with a beginner's guide to Total War Warhammer. Chariots tend to be a hot topic whenever a Total War game featuring them releases. Compared to the depictions of intense, high-speed killing machines, they come across pretty lackluster. If used properly, however, chariots can kill their worth, and on top of that can provide some tactical advantages. This proper use, unfortunately, requires tons of micromanagement. The average chariot has an extremely high charge bonus, with mid to high speed and mid to low melee attack and defense stats, and they're typically anti-infantry. While that's similar to how one might describe shock cavalry, chariots tend to lean more heavily towards the charge and get out approach, and typically carry more weight. This means you need to micromanage them to a greater degree, charging them into the enemy, and then pulling them out within a handful of seconds. Failing to do so will result in the unit falling apart almost immediately, and you will not get your money's worth. You also need to make sure they're never charging into the enemy uphill. While this is standard for all units given the effects of a height advantage, it is even more important for a unit that relies so heavily on its speed. A slow walk into the enemy lines up a hill is the same thing as handing the chariots to your enemy. Their charge will be most unimpressive. And you need to make sure you're never charging with very tired or exhausted chariots. If you haven't seen my previous video on fatigue mechanics, these states give -20 and -25% to charge bonus. Being tired only gives a 10% reduction, which is not ideal but acceptable, but a unit with 80 charge bonus is now running around 64 or 60 when they're very tired or exhausted. Their speed is also reduced by 15% in both of these states, and remember, this is a unit that relies heavily on charge bonus and speed, so you really need to manage fatigue, especially since they'll drop dead so easily otherwise. And finally, never tell two chariot units to charge the same enemy unit. They're very likely to bump into each other and slow down severely, or get stuck in as a result. Instead, have them charge units that are right next to each other if you want to create a concentrated zone of hurt. So far, they sound like quite the pain to manage, yes, but let's take a look at not only how much, but the kind of damage chariots can do. When ordered to charge, chariots can get to maximum speed almost immediately, allowing them to respond quickly to evolving situations. And when they charge in, they do some serious work. Remember, impact damage is a consideration, and it's determined by looking at a unit's speed and mass. Chariots are fast and heavy, so when they come barreling in, there's a high chance they'll go barreling right through. When the charge hits, you need to keep an eye on the individuals and see how they are surrounded. Ideally, you can pull them out as the enemy soldiers are starting to stand up, but if one gets stuck in, you can order the disengage to go through where the enemy is thinnest, and your chariot will waltz right through. And yes, if the enemy is thinnest, if you were to order the chariot to go straight through, that is absolutely an option. Now, this first charge might only get a handful of kills, but the damage to HP is important. Each subsequent charge will cause significantly more damage. Chariots, more often than not, hurt the vast majority of soldiers in a unit, softening them all up for the kill. This helps rack up kills on following charges, and also helps weaker infantry units survive engagements. Beyond looking at kills and HP damage, let's consider the sheer disruption a well-placed chariot charge can cause. A chariot charge into a wide, shallow unit will let your chariots right through, and place them right behind the enemy. A charge coming in from roughly 45 degrees off into the corner of an enemy unit that is a bit deeper will cause some serious collateral damage to nearby units as well. This can break formations, both physically and from a morale standpoint. A good chariot charge or two can ensure the enemy will break easily where you hit, and once you have access to the rear of the enemy's formation, your chariots can have a field day causing morale and physical damage. Chariots are great for causing some initial disruption among enemy ranks, and can destroy infantry over the course of a handful of charges. The rate at which they kill gives severe morale penalties to the enemy, and their ability to break right through the ranks can give you a tactical advantage. Consider using chariots as less of a strike force and more of a support unit. They can be used after the engagement start as the perfect hammer to your anvil, or they can be used before the engagement start to soften the enemy up for your infantry lines and archers. And remember, they ride right through units with low cohesion, so you can tell chariots to charge a unit and any disparate soldiers in between their current position and the target are likely to be thrown aside. This is great for taking out routing units, and can help spread the pain to more units at a time when using hammer and anvil tactics. If you find yourself facing chariots on the other side of the field, make sure you're setting your infantry units to be narrow and deep. Near square works best. This gives you the highest chance of stopping the chariots somewhere in the middle of your unit, giving you a better chance of surrounding them. Also, make sure you're bracing for impact as well with anti-large units. It's also an option to place units 2 levels deep, with the front being thin, allowing the enemy chariots to penetrate. Then, your second layer catches the chariots, so to speak, and your first layer is able to double back and completely surround the chariots. This is riskier since the enemy might adjust accordingly and charge in from the side instead, or take out your first layer and pull out right away. Also, consider using melee cavalry to intercept and kill them. If you consider their speed, you'll either be able to give chase to the chariots or intercept them while they're coming in for the kill. When used appropriately, chariots can completely destroy any sense of decorum your enemy might have. Use their brute strength to punch through enemy lines, and then ride them down from behind. Use this strength to break through the enemy center, or give yourself the advantage on one flank for an envelopment maneuver. Yes, chariots have severe disadvantages, but you need to learn how to use your units appropriately so that the advantages outweigh them, and that's what being a great general is about. For more tips and tricks, subscribe to this channel, and if there's something you'd like to see covered, let me know in the comments below.